Welcome to Proven and Probable, where we deliver mining insights and bullion sales in the form of physical delivery, offshore depositories, and private blockchain distributed ledger technology.
Thank you for joining us for a special four-part series entitled All About Private Placements. Joining us for a conversation is Tekoa de Silva. He is an accomplished licensed financial advisor for Sprott USA, the preeminent name in the natural resource space. Full disclosure, the following is not a Sprott USA endorsed product, and it is for educational purposes only. Tekoa, we concluded the edition on number 2 with the question regarding legend removals. Now, what if I have an online discount broker? Can I go to them and have my legend removed?
Sure. Well, looking at it from a North American context, a person may have a brokerage account with Charles Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade. The best place to get the answer to that question is by calling them and asking the advisor that the person has that they work with. And the answer that they get will probably be, you may have to go to 2, 3, or 4 people at that firm to get a precise answer, and it may be an imprecise answer at that. My impression is that many of the broker-dealers, certainly in the U.S., I think, are continuing to cut out the services that they used to offer because they're no longer considered core products and services, and the cost of offering those services is going through the roof in terms of compliance and legal. So why deal with it? From their standpoint, I think it makes much better sense to just simply let those services and those people go. But a person can always ask, and they can always try. My observation and my discussions with a few people that have tried some of those discount online brokerage firms in the past was that it was a real runaround, sort of like spending a week at the DMV. So
I've been there. Go ahead. I'm going to let you finish, and I'll interject here. Go ahead.
So if someone has some time to kill and they want to, pursue that process, by all means. But my advice would be to vet out a couple firms that claim to be specialist, natural resource and private placement, capable firms, and test them out and to see how they go. But be careful with trying to do private placement activities with discount brokers.
In my personal experience, the large online discount brokers, the challenge that I encountered was that, number one, they didn't like the fact that you or I participated in a private placement and it wasn't through them. That's slap on the hand, number one. Number two is you're dealing with a company predominantly based in the Toronto Stock Exchange, and they only deal with OTCs, which is not, they like to say it's the same, but it's not the same. And so one of the challenges I've experienced is that I have a company that's listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and hypothetically the scenario works like this. Okay, now if you went to the discount broker and you gave them the stock certificate, they can't convert it from the TSX version to the OTC, and part of that restriction also comes from computer share. So what I've encountered as well with computer share is, well, you're a US resident, we're concerned that you're going to take this, if we put it from certificate into direct registration. Our concern, Computer Share Canada, is that because there's 2 computer shares, if we're not aware, just so people are aware. There's Computer Share Canada and Computer Share. And so Computer Share Canada is who I'm predominantly dealing with because the company is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Their rebuttal was, Maurice, we're concerned that you're going to take this share now and convert it into an OTC, and it's no longer in the Canadian securities markets. It's now in the U.S. And I even went to as far as saying, hey, I'll sign an affidavit, David. I don't want it there because the difference as well, and I'm sure you can attest to this, the bid and the ask on an OTC, the spread really makes it cumbersome. And then as Rick and Doug Casey have shared in the past, when it's time to sell, is there anyone? Who is it to who? What is the owl scenario they've used? I'm sure you've heard it before, but to sell it to who? Because there's no one there, because the market is so small here, because these are micro cap companies really that we're discussing. And then the caveat to it is they're not even US based. So to answer that question from a personal experience, yes, the names you've referenced, I got the runaround. Oh, we can certainly do it, but unfortunately, they weren't able to. So let's switch the conversation now and finish the discussion on warrants. I've gotten the legend removed, and I now have the ability to sell my shares, but also the price has increased. Let's use this scenario we discussed earlier with Renova Resources. I bought it at 66 cents. The warrant, I can exercise it for 1 year at 90 cents, and the stock price is now at $7. How do I exercise this warrant?
Okay, exercising a warrant obtained by private placement. So your broker that you use, who hopefully shows themselves to be very competent and really knows their stuff, will have a specific procedure laid out to you where they can say, this is the form that you need to fill out. Well, I'll come back to that in just a second, but they'll say, this is the form that you need to fill out. Here's how you deliver us the funds, and here's what our process is going to be once we get those two items from you. And I'll describe my observation of how that process works. But first I'll say, if we go back to, here's the form that you need to fill out to exercise your warrant, I would say, when a person wants to participate in a private placement, they get an agreement called a subscription agreement from the issuer. It's a 30 or 40 page document. If you look at the end of that document, there's usually a page right in there. It's an appendix page usually, and it says exercise form or warrant exercise form. They'll include it right in there sometimes. And you look at it, and you basically, what you do is you write the certificate number of your warrant certificate in there, you sign it, you deliver that with the funds to the issuer. So you could do that personally, Maurice, or myself, or anybody. You can get your funds, you can send it, I guess, to the issuer by bank wire, and then send them that that warrant exercise form. You could even send them your warrant, but to be frank, I think they have I believe they have the ability to exercise your warrant without them actually having possession of the original warrant certificate, because they'll just cancel out the number once they exercise it. And so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is if the broker, the way I laid out a second ago, if the broker says, here's how you exercise it, give us these forms, here's how you give us the cash, and then we'll take care of it for you, they would essentially be doing the same thing, using their clearing firm bank. If their clearing firm bank has your warrant certificate deposited in a vault, that just means that they'll have somebody go in there, pull out the certificate, put it with some funds, and then send it to the issuer that way. And then the issuer, they get started with their legal process, working with the transfer agent and having the stock certificate. If you're exercising the warrant to buy common shares, they'll get to work to create the stock certificate at the transfer agent. And then once that stock certificate is produced, you're back at step number one with regard to depositing traditionally, or your regular deposit process with stock certificates obtained by private placement. And your broker will have that instruction set out for you. So the transfer agent will exercise for you. They'll either drop it inside a DRS advice or the direct registration system account held at the transfer agent, or they can have the paper shipped to you directly in the mail. But either way, you want to get that back to the broker so that they can start the process of being able to prepare those common shares to be sold for you on the open market. Also remember, too, that when you exercise that warrant and that share certificate is produced, there's probably going to be restrictive legends on the back.
That was my next question, yeah.
So this is where having a competent broker can come in handy, because the broker may say, okay, here's the warrant exercise form, but also here is the legend removal form too. Send to us the legend removal form with the warrant exercise form so that we can have the restrictive legends removed at the same time, or build it into our process to save you time. And really, when they say save you time, they really, I think in most cases they could really mean it, because saving time means saving 4 to 6 weeks. A question on time. It takes probably 2 to 3 weeks to have a warrant exercised, the process complete, and have a common stock issued. And then this whole deposit process, my experience has been that probably takes between 4 to 6 weeks to get a physical certificate deposited into a brokerage account and then cleared through the legal review process. So, 2 to 3 weeks for exercise, another 4 to 6 weeks for depositing, and depending on what the restrictive legends are, that could be it, or more time could be added.
And you just made me think of something. Time is of the essence. We've seen this, and I'm sure someone listening sees that there's a first tranche and a second tranche. And here's where time is of the essence, because if that stock is moving, usually you have a 4-month duration where you have to hold that stock. So when you see a good value proposition, Tekoa, you can expand on this a little further, but what are the benefits of, someone can say, well, I got into the second tranche, what's the difference? And would you allude on that, please?
Well, now do you mean like if an issuer publishes a press release about a private placement and they say tranche number 1 will close on, let's say, August 1st, and then tranche number 2 will close on August 20th?
Correct. Because that's a 3-week window there that you're missing out on should the stock price accelerate and should you exercise the warrant. You could be losing out on an opportunity because you never know how the stock price is going to move, and that gives you a 3-week, best way to put it, we're running a race, you're 3 weeks ahead of me on running this race, basically. Although we have the same opportunity buying the stock at the same price usually, and the warrant exercised under the same terms is just you're 3 weeks in advance, because there is this holding and conveyance process that goes through of removing those legends and then being able to have it into the street name registration versus the direct registration.
Right. That's a really good observation. I think it depends on the exact handling procedure that's going to be taken by the issuer. If the issuer is going to issue all of these private placement of the securities at the end of the completion of both tranches, and they're all going to be issued at the same time, one probably doesn't need to be too concerned about that. But if they are having multiple issuances along the way, you're absolutely right. The date that's printed on the back of your certificate may be the date that it's issued, as well as on the back of the certificate, the restrictive legend, the 4-month hold restrictive legend. It may say that you may not be able to sell until November 20th of, let's say, 2019. Your date may actually end up being a couple weeks earlier than somebody else down the line. And you're absolutely right that there could be a few weeks of a head start that person may have on the others. So it really depends on where these date deadlines fall, and then also the handling procedure that the broker that you use is how much time they need to remove the restricted legends. So it depends on the specific circumstances of the deal.
Not to digress, but when you're looking at capital structures for company, you see outstanding and fully diluted. That's where this narrative changes. Can you kind of expand on that, how that plays into it? Because the warrants have or have not been exercised along with options.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. Shares outstanding versus fully diluted. A company may have 100 million shares outstanding. And if you want to do a calculation of the market cap of the company or the price for that business, if you and I were to buy that business in full today, if the shares are trading at $1 per share in the open market and there's 100 million shares, we know that the business is priced at 100 million. Now, if we run off and start making subsequent calculations using that 100 million as our reference number for the price of the business, in terms of what we're paying for what we get, without looking at something like outstanding options, outstanding warrants, we or one could run the risk of overpaying without realizing it. Because what if behind that 100 million shares outstanding, there are an additional 100 million or 200 million options or warrants that are in the money or close to being in the money? I think depending on the strike price of the stock options and of the warrants, one needs to make a determination as to what they feel is a fully diluted market cap that's appropriate to that situation. They could do a straight technical viewpoint of it and say, well, there's 200 million warrants outstanding, 100 million common shares, so let's just let's assume that all the warrants are exercised, and we'll use a 300 million market cap. A $300 million price for a business obviously is dramatically different than a $100 million price. So taking into account stock options, warrants, the exercise price for all the instruments, which are usually published within the annual reports or the MD&A, management discussion and analysis documents, is key to coming up with a responsible price for what you're paying for a business.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes part 3 on all about private placements. If you wish to have a conversation with Mr. De Silva, email tdasilva@sprottglobal.com. If you want to find out which private placements have our attention at Proven and Probable, simply visit provenandprobable.com. Place your correspondence in the subscribe box and let us know that you are accredited. Subscription is free, and we do not share your correspondence with third parties.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.